This is Smithy.tv.
Reporting for Katie Chats here at Smithy TV in downtown Toronto with producer, film consultant, and writer Greg Klymkiw. What inspired you to get into the business?
Oh, well, that's a very easy question to answer. What inspired me to get into the film business was sitting in the front row of a 2,000-seat picture palace in Winnipeg when I was 7 years old. It was called the Metropolitan Theatre, when they still had picture palaces. and this was a picture palace. And what got me into the business was at the age of 7, Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston. That pretty much did it. I always loved movies as a kid. But I became obsessed with movies, and so obsessed with movies that I've actually been able to figure out how many movies I've seen in my life, because basically between the age of 7 and about 18, I used to keep the most insane, detailed records of every movie I saw. I would write the title, write down all the credits, write a little review about it, and all that kind of stuff. Thank God, I still have all that stuff because it's kind of funny to read now. But I was able at a certain point, I tried to figure out how many movies have I seen, and that actually helped me figure it all out. And so really it was movies that got me into movies. I mean, I lived movies, I breathed movies. Movies were everything to me.
And how many films have you seen?
Oh, I have seen over 30,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
It's always hard. Favorites always change from time to time. And you have favorites for different reasons. But I think, for me, I always go back to, I guess, a movie that I have had this weird relationship with over the years, and it's a movie that I've grown into and that's grown with me, and that as I've grown as a human being, the movie has grown, and it's a really great film. And for me, it's Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, which, it's a funny thing. When you see that as a young person, you're watching the movie, you admire the craft, but I have to admit, the first time I ever saw it, my thing, which was like in my teens, I used to think, well, yeah, Vertigo is pretty good, but damn, I love Rear Window. That really does it. But now, years later, it's Rear Window that I admire for the craft, and Vertigo that I admire for being the masterpiece that it is.
You have a background in broadcasting and journalism as well. How did that help you with your transition into film? Well,
it helped a lot because, I was always writing stuff about movies when I was a teenager, and actually a real dear friend of mine in Winnipeg at the time, she was working in the news department at one of the local rock and roll stations there. I think the AM was CKY, and then the rock station was, oh God, I love 92 City FM, where Winnipeg rocks. I loved those stations, and she worked there, and she just said, you know a lot of stuff about movies. Do you want to come in and do a little test thing? Did one, and then next thing I knew, I was like 16 years old, and I was a film critic for this radio station, and one thing led to another. I started submitting freelance writing here, there, and everywhere, and started doing film reviews and interviews and items on CBC radio and a little bit on CBC TV, and it was a great thing because I really loved talking about movies, and because I'd seen so many movies, it finally kind of got to a point where it didn't get immediately into film production. I actually moved into exhibition. I ran my own movie theater. It was a sort of a cult art house, but it was a really weird cult. It was special. This is in Winnipeg, too, which is not like, I mean, it's a pretty bizarre place, but it's like basically late 70s, early 80s. I was doing nothing but playing cult movies. And, it was an old 600-seat house, and I used to pack the place. I eventually became a film buyer for small town movie theaters. And eventually I started doing less and less journalism and writing about film, and occasionally I'd keep my pinky in and people would ask me to do a piece here and there, but I did really miss it, but it finally became a submerged part of my, I guess, life. I hesitate to say career because I don't think anyone in the entertainment business can choose a career in that business. I think it chooses you.
And there was recently a documentary made featuring you. What can we expect to see in it?
Yeah, well, I've been in a lot of documentaries about films, but I have to admit, this one, it is the first time someone's insanely chosen to make me the sole subject of a film, and it's basically, it's called tentatively right now, it's called the Klymkiw story, Tales of Survival in Winnipeg, and it really is about those sort of crazy early days in Winnipeg when I was working with a bunch of really iconoclastic Canadian filmmakers, people like John Pays, Bruce Duggan, and of course Guy Madden. Guy and I worked together on a number of films. I produced his first 3 features, and eventually I was also tied in very closely with the film co-op there, the Winnipeg Film Group, and then I sort of put together this huge international marketing campaign. It was about, basically, I basically started marketing these bizarre little movies from Winnipeg, and basically put out this campaign that, hey, this weird place is producing really weird movies. And I have to admit, it kind of worked. I mean, Winnipeg got this lovely international reputation as being like the most insane place in the country, and one of the more insane places in the world where movies were being made, and it was a lot of fun, and because I had been an exhibitor and specialized in cult films and stuff like that, one of the things I brought to that particular table was the whole notion of, well, these are weird movies. I'm kind of an expert in cult films from being an exhibitor. Let's try and market these as cult films. And that was sort of the whole thing. And so the documentary pretty much focuses on a lot of that. And I guess they talked to a lot of my old colleagues like Guy and George Toll's a screenwriter and filmmakers I've worked with and stuff like that. And I just saw a rough cut of it, and it was pretty nostalgic, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about your film corner.
Oh, yes, the Klymkiw Film Corner. Well, here's the thing. I mean, it was funny because the young fellow who did the documentary about me, Brian McKenna, who's an amazing filmmaker. He's based in Montreal now, but originally from Winnipeg. And he asked me sort of a similar thing about, why now all the film writing? And it's weird because it's not why now. It's like, well, I did it 30 years ago, kind of missed doing it now. And I guess the thing is that over the 13 years that I took a break from the independent world and was a producer in residence and senior creative consultant at the Canadian Film Centre, during that time, I started realizing that, there was a lot of stuff I had to say about movies and how movies are made, and stuff that worked its way into, a lot of my lectures there, workshops, feedback, mentorship, that kind of thing. And then I decided, you know what, I gotta put all this stuff down on paper. And so I started writing a book, and I'm in the process of trying to finish that off right now. It's a book on screenwriting. And concurrent to that, a friend of mine who worked at the Film Center, Alan Bacchus, who's now over at the wonderful Astral Films Harold Greenberg Fund. Alan was working at the Film Center, and he said, hey, I've got this website, and I've kind of set myself this task of reviewing one movie every day. And I thought I could do it alone, but it's getting to be a little too much. And could you maybe write some? I said, yeah, sure, why not, And it was then that I got that 30-year-old bug that had remained dormant, for a long time. That bug to write about film came back with a vengeance. And eventually I just started doing a lot of writing for a lot of different publications. But mostly what I wanted to do was have some sort of a presence out there where I could be very, very passionate about film, but also talk about film from a genuinely critical standpoint, in terms of not critical in a sort of an egghead academic sense, but more in a practical sense, so that maybe a young filmmaker is going to read one of the reviews and they'll have seen the film and they'll read something in there about what's working or what's not, and they'll be able to make that connection and say, hey, that's good tip. So I created this little Klymkiw film corner. It originally started as a Canadian film corner because it kind of bugged me there wasn't enough stuff out there about Canadian films, but then I kind of realized I didn't just want to write about Canadian films, and so I sort of moved it over into the Klymkiw film corner. And it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know how many reviews I've written. Something like 1,000 film reviews to date, so it's a lot of fun. It's got a huge international readership. I'm really happy with that, and I get people from all over the world reading it. And one of the nice things is getting emails from directors you don't even know. They send you emails and say, thank you for that review, no one's ever said that before, things like that, because I try to look at the films from the perspective of someone who loves movies but also has made movies. And that's a pretty unique perspective. Certainly in Hollywood there are people who do that, but there's no one in Canada who really does that. I mean, in Hollywood, obviously, Paul Mazursky was doing it, Peter Bogdanovich does it big time. To a certain extent, Martin Scorsese does it, not in their league, but, the thing is that here in Canada, I felt that someone needed to do that kind of film criticism. So that's what the Film Corner is pretty much all about.
And where is the best place to find out more information on you and the Film Corner online?
Oh, you know what? Just it's pretty easy. You just type Klymkiw Film Corner into a Google or something, and there'll be a lot of information there. You can type my name into a search engine. There's all kinds of good things and not so good things. The usual gamut of stuff. It's pretty easy to find information about me out there in the internet.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations on all of your success, all of your projects, and best of luck with the book and with the Film Corner and with all the exciting things to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Katie Ullman reporting for Katie Chats here at Smithy TV in downtown Toronto.